Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your first time in Costa Rica?
Yes, it is. I wanted to go there, so I had no idea I would end up going there like this, but.
Well, actually, there's a strategy being shaped to attract people to come here for remote working from Costa Rica, near the beaches and the mountains.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting.
Yes,
Very
yes.
good.
And so you can spend some time during weekends.
You probably get a fiber optic and a tax break thrown in.
I was thinking that that would be very difficult not to want to come there. Especially like yesterday, couldn't go outside because of the air was so bad. The fires around
California?
us. Oh, yes.
Where are you?
Yes, right in California, right outside San Jose.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, it was pretty bad, unfortunately. And seeing and hearing and watching places I've gone to, or my family have gone to, like in Napa, just now disappear. It's tragic.
Napa?
Yeah, Napa is Sonoma, that whole area. Wineries are just disappearing, unfortunately. The fires just taking them away.
Burning down all the vineyards.
Burning a lot of the vineyards, and also the smoke is now being very bad for any of the vineyards that are there for the grapes themselves. The smoke, the ash, all the rest of that. Not good, not good. So, who and I guess I'm not. I didn't have much of a briefing on what the Club de Investigación Tecnológica is.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if I said that so poorly.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, well, we were founded 32 years ago, and we meet at least once a month to discuss interesting topics.
Excellent.
And you only have one rule: you're not allowed to do a sales pitch. That's the only rule.
Oh, there's no sales pitch here. No, don't worry.
Cool.
It's more to sort of, I would say, explain to you what the Digital Twin Consortium is all about, and then show some really interesting and innovative use cases and examples of that. And
that's very cool.
It's pretty amazing. I just got off the phone with a member, with a member who is talking about the digital twin of the self. So creating an avatar and being able to have that, and how would that tie together? As I'm proposing that we add additional working groups, one of them being around healthcare and life science. And so it's more of a, I would say it's a way to break down the silos that would traditionally have existed between the one area. So I'm sorry, I didn't even have my video on. My apologies. So
I give you another idea.
Yes.
Is for one of the problems nowadays is that I am a lecturer at the university, and one of the problems now is that people do not have access to their chemistry or physics or biology labs.
Yeah.
So having somehow a way to perform their lab work remotely, probably with some robotics or mechatronics.
Yep.
Of course, they will lose the smell feeling of some of the chemical reactions, but
yeah, it's an interesting challenge and dilemma. Unfortunately, is how can you get that hands-on feel of the labs when you're stuck in a place where you can't go into your schools or whatever. So that's an area, and I think holographic. The projections like the Microsoft with the HoloLens, or Google will be, at some point have their Google Lens out again, Google Glass. That's going to bring a whole nother level of dimensionality to that. And that's part of, I gave a talk a while ago where I really talked about the fact that digital twins used to be a nice to have, but now they're a must have. And you absolutely have to be able to get access now in some manner to the data that you can't go on the shop floor. You can't go down into that mine, or you can't do whatever. You don't have access to that. So your virtualization of the digital twin is very critical. And it used to be that, you know, it's nice for digital transformation, nice to have. Yeah, we're working on something like that. We're working together. Now here comes something like the pandemic. Slam. You have to have digital transformation. I mean, if you don't have this, if we didn't have the connectivity, think about what this economy would really look like now if we hadn't built up to this level. So the digital transformation is where it was a nice to have. Yeah, we're thinking about it. We don't know how to make our factories do there. Well, now you have no choice. I can't get access to my equipment. I can't get my workers all together in one space and do what we normally would do. So how do we do that? Well, we have to be virtualized. And how does that, what really enables that is the digital twin. So that's part of the approach. And that's, I mean, another reason why I believe we've seen such a tremendous growth in the number of members that we have. We started out with, I think it was 20 or 30, and that was 2 weeks into it. Dr. Soli called me up because I'd been with the Industrial Internet Consortium for almost 6 years. And I'd done 2 very, very key test beds throughout that, brought on many, many members to help support that from my previous company. That's a little of my background. So I've got both the software, the hardware, the systems, the applications background, looking at the different areas across different verticals, whether it was automotive or whether it was aerospace and defense or even consumer, and then how that would tie in. The company I used to work for, I was there for 17 years, was Xilinx. And they do programmable SoCs. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but FPGA technology, absolutely. And so I helped define some of the architectures, some of their devices. I was brought in when they started to integrate a processor into their sea of programmability. And then from there, be able to really identify what are the areas that we can take advantage of, but then what do we have to have around our device? Because yeah, we're a piece of silicon in the sales team. They understand the FPGA side. Boy, talk about software. And now you put a processor in there. That gets really, really scary about that. So that's a lot of my background and experience had been through that in the different areas. So I actually ended up running that product line from its early conception all the way through production, and then helping define the next generation, and then going into eventually where my other half of my career had been in, which was in automotive, and driving automotive from autonomous and driver assistance type applications, where now you're looking at the parallelism that you can unlock in terms of signal processing for different types of image processing, driver applications, ADAS, so the front camera, rear camera, any type of sensing. But then it really extended out from taking those initial machine vision into the next level of machine learning and being able to tie all that together. So one of the test beds I did, the last one of the test beds I did at the consortium, was doing using machine learning, more the stochastic, the Bayesian network or Gaussian distribution, these types of algorithms for doing predictive maintenance on specific machinery for that. So a lot of good hands-on experience from that. And now again, how can we represent some of this through digital twin technology? And we actually had a couple projects right before I left that we were working on, and being able to do that, which are still fascinating, continuing to grow. So that's a little, just a snapshot of my background.
Excellent. You saved me the work.
There you
Wonderful.
go. Exactly.
So let's go. Welcome, Dan. Thank you very much for cooperating with the club.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to do that. So I appreciate that. And I hope that, you know, during my presentation, if you feel, well, no, we already know that, please speed me up. There's a lot of material here. There's a lot of things we can talk about at different levels. This is really to help you to understand. And I'm not just here just to walk through the slides like this. I really want to, I like very much interactivity. And I think there's a lot of things that we can share and talk about.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right, great.
Go ahead. Thanks.
Certainly. Let me share my screen, figure out which one it is. I think it's screen 3. Let's see which one is sharing.
Okay.
All right, I'm glad you can see which one is, because I can't. Let's see.
It says demystifying digital twin terminology, taxonomy, and technology.
Outstanding. All right. Now, do you see a split screen or do you see the full screen?
Full screen.
Full screen. Perfect. All right. So this is, so what we've been doing is we've been to help people understand what the Digital Twin Consortium is all about, is really going through a series of webinars. So the first two webinars that we have done, one was a overview of what is the Digital Twin Consortium. So I've collected some slides from that. The second webinar was about this exactly part, was demystifying what the taxonomy, the terminology, the technology, we call it 3T, what that working group is doing, but in the same respect, understanding what are some of the challenges we're faced with. And I was talking with one of our members. I work with both on the business development side as well as obviously driving what is the direction we want to take and providing guidance to the different working groups. I participate in all the working groups and even some of the individual, what we call our tiger teams. But it was talking to them and they said, you know, you asked 10 different people, what is a digital twin? You'll get 10 answers back. That's basically what I said, because there's all this market confusion and one thing means to one group a different thing. And they said, no, you won't get 10 answers back. You'll get 15 answers back, because everybody has their different conceptions. Even within, there's still areas that they feel are multiples. So really one of the things that the Digital Twin Consortium has been formed is to try to cut through that market confusion, cut through a lot of the hype, cut through a lot of understanding, you know, well, is it modeling or is it simulation? I presented the other day to a CTO forum out of Boston. And that was the first thing they said was, it sounds like all you did was you took modeling and simulation and put some nice wheels on it and dressed it up, but it's the same thing. And I said, well, in some cases, but reality is the digital twin is actually, it's a twin. There has to be some synchronization or synchronizability to some instance that is a physical or something that can be observable and monitorable. So you do have this linkage through that. There has to be some analysis based on the data that you're getting in terms of a tie to real world and the real analytics. And I'll give you some examples of how that really changes the concept from just pure modeling and simulation to a real example. So are you seeing the slide with the McKinsey?
Yep.
Okay, great. Because I don't, normally I'll get a border around it, but perfect. So this is one of the statements, right, I was bringing out was a lot of companies were saying, and same thing with IoT, right, back in the days, well, you just rebranded what we've been doing all together all the time. No, if you can bring this together and unify the approach that you're taking, you can bring more efficiencies, you can increase your productivity, you can see tremendous gains in different areas by doing that. And that's where this quote sort of came from. If we can figure out how to link the physical with the virtual, you can generate significant revenue, significant opportunities. And I'll give you another example, and you'll see one of these in the use cases. One of our members is basically, they run a, I guess what they do is they sell the pipes, they sell the data pipes, and they lease those on a basis. They set up a structure so that you can have very, very complex analysis and variables going on for dependencies to be able to identify before something is going to fail or your system is not operating to the full level of capacity that it could be, but it's a real-time continuous monitoring that it's doing that. And one of the examples is they were telling me about is some of these mines. And these mines go fairly deep, right? They're miles down into the ground and they have autonomous vehicles going back and forth, or they have big, long conveyor belts, very long conveyor belts that are helping get the ore out from the source. And they said what they were finding out was that these conveyor belts would start to break down at all different times. Even when they were fairly new, they were breaking down much sooner than they expected. And they said what they did was they put cameras in underneath so they could watch the operation as was going on, and they could take all the different analytics. They could understand how much ore was being put on those belts. They could understand the temperature conditions. They could understand the monitoring the vibration on the motors themselves and everything. So they were able to identify specific failure instances that people said, well, we've had all that data, but we never put it together in a holistic perspective. We never really understood the dependencies and what was happening. So we were able to find root cause things that we hadn't really ever considered. And as a result of that, you know, it's saving them on one mine alone, it saved them over $4 million. And they're taking this approach where they're putting this digital twin concept where they can monitor that data in a very holistic view. Think about it, a 360 view in terms of the nature of the types of data. And they use machine learning for that. They use, as I said, the cameras. They're monitoring that constantly. All different types of sensors to be able to understand what is everything looking like. And they have a digital twin to represent that. So that's one example of how a mining company has been able to recognize significant value in terms of using a digital twin in that approach. So who are we? A little bit about the consortium. Object Management Group is the umbrella company. They are the umbrella organization, standards bodies. And what effectively they have done, this is the second consortium that has really taken off for them. This is the fastest growing consortium. Before that, it was the Industrial Internet Consortium. And so now we're actually working together and have liaisons to share and collaborate and really become, again, that authority in digital twin. So when somebody says, yeah, I've heard about these digital twins, but no, go talk to the Digital Twin Consortium. They understand this. They have a very strong grasp of it, and they're actually doing things that are helping to change the markets and change the industries. What we're talking about is really these transformative values that are coming from this. This is not, as one of the members says, this is not your run-of-the-mill digital twin. This is something that is actually fundamental and foundationally changing, and I'll give you some more examples of that coming up. When it was founded, which was just back in May, believe it or not, we had the founders were ANSYS, so the modeling simulation. They have lots of relationships, collaborations with some of the industrial folks like Rockwell and those types. We also had Microsoft as a founder. We also had Dell Technologies as a founder. And then, interestingly, we also had a company, and this is one of the primary areas, was Lend-Lease. And Lend-Lease is doing big contracting and property management, all these different areas. They wanted to bring the concept that they've seen with automotive and aerospace and defense in these areas where they're recognizing the value of digital twin technology, digital transformation, digital twin, digital thread, all of that. They wanted to bring that into the construction space, into those areas. So the chair of the steering committee of Lend-Lease was actually Bill Rue, and he was the CEO of GE Digital. And that's how we started along the lines with the industrial consortium. Now he has moved over. He is the CEO of the digital transformation for Lend-Lease. And they're based in Australia, so you'll see there's a pretty strong Australian contingency here. But they're also adopting digital twin technology in those spaces, I would say even stronger than what we've seen in other areas. And I'll give some more examples going forward. So we have ANSYS, Dell, we have Lend-Lease, Microsoft. We've added 2 new members. GE came in probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So we now have GE Digital. And then we also have Northrop Grumman, who has been using digital twins and digital twin technology in the development and of their systems. So here you can see the different organizations represented. As I said, Bill Rue is the CEO of the digital transformation effort. Saeed is on the Dell technology, so he is right in towards the CTO side. He's a distinguished engineer there. He's also on the steering committee, as is Colin Paris. He is the CEO of GE Digital now. And then you can see the other representations. We have a brand new founder that's come in and agreed to be at that level, which is Autodesk. So they have, in fact, several of the members are using their technology in their implementation of digital twins. So it's really great to have them on. But you can see the collective body of experience and knowledge base from that area. And then, of course, OMG with Richard and Bill Hoffman. So here are our members. As I said, we've gone from early stage of 20, 30 members to now we're closing over 150. And that's in the space of 3 months. And I think, again, that's because of some of the reasons and rationale I explained. This sort of shows you the breakdown in terms of the global nature of the consortium. And as I said, we now are opening up regional chapters in many different other areas. So we expect this to start increasing significantly. And again, one of the things that was come back to us is, look, you know, we have a lot of challenges in understanding why do we even want to implement a digital twin. We don't even know where to start. We know that there's opportunities for us, and those are some of the guiding principles of where the Digital Twin Consortium is going, why it was formed, and how to address either the interoperability issues, the market confusion out there about there. It's how do I get that value? I hear about this, but I don't know what to do. Well, we're out there to now help with our collective membership, collective best practices to be able to help to drive that and showcase that. And you know, a digital twin following that, it is a journey. So there are resources involved, there's investments involved, but when you get that right, there's a significant reward in terms of that, like that one mining company. You know, like I said, they're expanding it out, that principle out. They recognize they can see savings in the tens of millions of dollars across their business. So how are we as a consortium geared to help? We're working to improve that interoperability. We're looking at both different areas in terms of the vertical groups, but also in terms of open source and open standards. And now we're not a standards body, but we can certainly help to define the standards requirements and work with OMG, work with ISO. We have representation on ISO and IEEE. So this goes out much, much larger into those groups to work towards that standardization. And that also helps to drive and accelerate the market. As people hear more and more about the way digital twins are being used through these different webinars, through the papers, through the thought leadership that our members have, we see that market acceleration helping to continue to drive and grow in the adoption of digital twins. And first and foremost, as you see there, that last one is demonstrate the value. Show what those transformational values are, show what those tangible, real business outcomes are and how they're being recognized. So vision, mission, become the authority, work together, establish this ecosystem, continue to grow and build that out, partner with industry, academia, and government in a very open environment, and really drive and propel the adoption and the innovation that we're seeing from these members. Every day, it's like I'm in school when I'm sitting in these working groups and being able to bring people, that sounds familiar, let's go talk to this person. They're doing this for artificial intelligence, for their machine learning, how that might be applied across those same principles into a different approach. So, and we're already seeing that continued collaboration and driving there. And the commit from the consortium is to really accelerate the market and help to guide the outcomes for the users. And we've already had companies coming to us and really understanding that. What we did was we put together these first-year priorities. So how are we working with that type of membership? What are we really doing? We're working first in the area of developing these use cases, and I really want to call them case studies because that's how we can showcase the true value, those business outcomes. So all of the vertical working groups are focused on that. I'll show you the structure coming up. And then on top of that, we also have a horizontal or cross-cutting working group, and I'll show you some of the focus that they have. It's really to help establish I call it an authoritative definition of what a digital twin is. What does it encompass? So 3 areas, make this a standalone definition. When it comes out, what it is what is the digital twin all about, what it is. Then we talk about what is its purpose, what value, and then we also say, and about how it is being implemented. And we wanted to have that be very flexible and scalable, but very, very definitive, and you'll see some examples of that. So that's what the horizontal working group is looking at, but we've divided that and structured that into the specific areas to really provide a comprehensive definition. And we'll be coming out with a technical paper around that area. It will talk about the life cycle of a digital twin. Already some really fascinating things going on there. You'll see some representations coming up. We'll talk about the different phases of the digital twin of the life cycle. Now you get into a point where you have common characteristics. Common characteristics. Data is the lifeblood of the digital twin. Without that, you don't have a digital twin. So on top of that data, you need to be able to understand what is that data telling us. We've been capturing that data all the time, but we really have been sort of throwing that out. We haven't been paying attention to it and understanding it. When I say that from that holistic view, and understanding what does it really mean and where are the dependencies, what are the areas in terms of predictive, and even get to the point where we can be more at a higher level degree, even potentially autonomous, because we understand, we know what's happening. We have the twin of our data, the twin of our system here, and we know all the environmental conditions. An example of that is every single Tesla has a digital twin. They can say it has a personality. They know exactly what's happening at all times. It's always monitoring. It's always dumping back or uploading its data. It's always being updated through over-the-air updates. So every Tesla's digital twin. That's one example. As you know, the GE brought out the fact that it was about a jet engines and how we can now. Maybe what we do is we don't sell you the jet engine. We actually lease it, and we handle the maintenance because we have all the information about what that jet engine is from a virtual. So there's new business opportunities that come out of this. And we're already seeing some of that. Again, I'll go back to the Tesla example. Because he has a digital twin, because they have digital twins of every single vehicle, they know the performance, they know what the risks are. They can now start to offer insurance, believe it or not. So Tesla is going to offer insurance because they have the exact understanding of what's happening in that car. And so they can graduate that insurance in almost a real-time basis. Okay, we're watching this, so your insurance is going to go up if you're going to be using that ludicrous mode, right? Or, okay, you're being in a very steady state, everything's good, so we're going to drop that. So that's another business case that this digital twin enablement has provided. Let's see. So we're talking about the horizontal, the cross-cutting working group, really looking at the definition, looking at the common characteristics. Within those common characteristics, I talked about the data. You have the analytics of that. As soon as you have the analytics, you have to have access. So now you bring in the connectivity. After you have the connectivity, you now open up thresholds for opportunity for security concerns. So now you have security. So you have these common layers or common characteristics, features, functions of a digital twin. But let's take analytics. Here's where it gets really interesting. Now I have analytics, but what are my enabling technologies around that? Well, I can use neural networks, and we know how it seems almost every other day now there's a new neural network out there, whether it's a spike net or something else that's now advanced that whole technology, and we've combined these different types of neural networks. Or I could just be using pure algorithmic, so more stochastic approaches. Or I could be using augmented reality or VR, and we've seen that. So that's just an example of the enabling technologies around each of these different characteristics. I talked about the security, but it's not just about security. If you look at the different areas, security is very important. But if you're in a healthcare or a life science area, your information becomes governed by the HIPAA, so privacy becomes very concerned. You also, in the case of, say, you're in the mine or you're on an offshore rig, well, what else do you have? You have functional safety, you have reliability, you have resiliency that becomes also very concerning. So we incorporate all of these different areas into these, what I call that horizontal working group. We have subgroups to approach all of those. And all the time we're looking at that as we put the structure in place. Think about it as a reference architecture or a blueprint. We then have that as a lens to be able to look at what is coming out of the different vertical marketing working groups. So we now have consistency, we have alignment, we have a common vernacular, so we're all talking the same language now about these. And now we can look and say, well, how do you address functional safety? That's a great point. Maybe we need to put some more emphasis in that. So can we do a safety digital twin, for instance? Because there are companies out there doing functional safety and making a very good living about it, whether it's for automotive or whether it's for aviation, for planes. So yes, they are. They're doing a functional safety or a safety digital twin. Okay. I talked about the life cycle, looking at that, and then obviously what are the common challenges, and then what are the different ones, the unique ones, as we get into the different vertical areas. And then the next step is to really have and establish a conference for digital twins. So have a digital twin global face-to-face meeting where we can actually showcase these. And that's something, unfortunately, we had a date set, but due to the pandemic, that's actually getting pushed out even further now. but we're moving forward and we're going to do like virtual plug fest, these types of things. So I have some ideas about how to bring that out. One of the members runs a whole hackathon system, and those are going active. So there's opportunities there. Okay, working groups. I told you about the horizontal working group. There are 6 total working groups. So we focus on infrastructure. And from there, we're talking about buildings, smart buildings, but also scale that out to smart cities. We recently had NTT join us, and they've been involved in the digital city. So that's going to really help to provide even more insight and opportunities in terms of establishing that authority of how digital twins are being applied in multiple areas. So infrastructure also includes things like rail, it includes like airports, transportation, it includes traffic management, right of way. So we have members across all of those, and then it brings in the interesting area of governance. How do you control that? How do you look at that? And how is that actually governed? One of the representatives there is actually from New South Wales, the government of New South Wales. And they say, oh, well, we have that whole product life cycle, but what we do is we put gates at each one of these points. And you have to have that proper information. You have to have the proper clearance to say, yes, we can now move forward. You know, we're talking about major projects within the countries. Manufacturing ties in industrial, but not just industrial in the traditional sense, it's also in terms of supply chain management and how can a digital twin actually provide optimizations in those areas. So we have members that are doing that as well. Natural resources, oil and gas, mining, as I talked about. Another area that's very interesting is the concept of using repeating patterns in nature to provide a very resilient grid. So you have a smart grid, but it's based on this concept of fractals. So this company, this member, actually saw me do the webinar 2 weeks ago, and they sent me a LinkedIn, and they said, we're using digital twins. Everything you were saying really resonates. We see your membership. We think there's some great commonalities. Next, I called him. We talked about it. The next day he joined, and now he's actually moving up into a level of seniority within the organization to help to drive some of this authority, these new technologies. So if you're interested at all, the company is called the Agile Fractal Grid. And it is not just, it's an amazing concept, what it has and the capabilities. It brings in the high performance compute. It brings in the 5G connectivity, high speed switching, synchronization that you have to have if you're going to be in a fractalized nature, say nanogrid or microgrids in small towns, but you're going to be able to build those out and link those together. So, and it's also using what they call DER, which is distributed, or NER, distributed natural resources. So it's both solar as well as it's wind as well. So really exciting in that, and that's going to bring in even more members in more areas of how they can apply that. So I can send you some links if you're interested in this, Roberto, and take a look at that and see that there could be some really very intriguing things and aspects about that. So that was the natural resources. Talk about defense and aerospace. Just remarkable what they've been doing. I just saw about a week ago they announced that they call it the NGAD, the Next Generation Air Defense System, which is basically the next generation fighter. They were able to build that in remarkably less time. And then when they built their first prototype, they actually flew it and it operated flawlessly. They've never had that before. You're talking about a 5 to 10 year program. You're talking about, okay, well, we had this, but we have to go back and now it's going to add some more costs. So you have huge overruns. No, they came in under bid. They came in faster, and they came in flawless operation on the first. And what was behind it was a digital twin. It had changed their whole notion and the way they could do this, that they're now taking that and they're transforming all their traditional approaches to leverage digital twins. And not only that, they end up with what they call an E-plane. They have an electronic plane essentially, which now they can modify, tune, take care of, and do this very, very quickly and equip the fleet based on this with new customizations, new features and functions. not only that, I happen to know the company that actually does the uses a digital twin to do and train the operators, and also to train for maintenance as well as assembly. So they have an actual digital twin or representation where the fidelity is so accurate that they can use that to go out and maintain the systems, or which would require the disassembly and assembly, and or understand that. So that's just remarkable, and now that's spawned a whole new generation of thought and approach as this digitization and the digital twin has enabled them. They're looking at that for their next generation hypersonic missiles, next generation vehicles. That's what I'm talking about, transformative value. And that's where we're really establishing that. And Northrop Grumman is now a member of us too, and they've been following these types of technologies. And then
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please. I said, feel free to stop me. If you get me going, it's hard to stop me, so please.
Now, I was wondering about the building of the digital twin. Like everyone does it whichever way they can. There's no standard way of doing it. There's no twin development kit. Correct. Okay. And that is something that we're looking at. As I said, one of the other elements that the horizontal team is looking at is that entire technology stack, and understanding, are there opportunities for open source? Are there opportunities for open standards to come into play to help to start? Well, here's pieces of that kit, and this is the way we did it. Maybe we can standardize on this. And I do know for a fact one of our members is getting ready to open source their whole platform for being able to do digital twins. And it's really exciting. They're over in the UK, and they're ready to open source this. They're working directly with a couple of the universities there. Leeds is one of them. But, you know, there's opportunities to understand what are the implications of that. And we also have, as you know, Microsoft. Microsoft has what they call a DTDL that they're continuing to grow very quickly, which is a digital twin descriptive language. And so there's a lot of great things around that, and that's really looking at it from how could we do that and represent a building, and now we have a common tie across this. So the next person doing something says, well, I need to be, I can use that. Or there's other open source, SysML, right, and Admin Shell. There was just a paper released in conjunction with the Industrial Internet Consortium and Platform Industry 4.0. So, and that was tied around that. So believe me, they're all looking at how can we encapsulate some of that. There are different, I would say, flavors, but it's recognized, and that is part of the presentation. You'll see some ideas in those areas. Yeah, because right now it looks to me like digital twin technology is reserved for big companies. I mean, people who can have a budget to do this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, the company I'm talking about that's saying they're open sourcing this is something that they've worked with those big companies, but they're a startup. And we have many, many startups in the consortium, and it's because they recognize the value. And if they can bring in some level of innovation and we can be a part of that sort of kit, you know, that's sort of what the direction or the path of that agile fractal grid is to provide a kit to be able to create a nanogrid or a microgrid, and be able to say, here's the whole thing, here's the training, take it, we'll help you first time, you're up and running. You know how it works, you can self-sustain, you can then take that and you can now go into your next town, boom, build that up. And that's that whole idea. So you hit the nail on the head, and there's a lot of work towards trying to really bring that and address that, and Digital Twin Consortium is looking at it from that standard as well. Cool. All right.
Can I ask a question too?
Please.
Do you have people from virtual reality or mixed reality collaborating as part of the consortium?
Absolutely do. And if you look at it, I'll give you one example. This is actually another university. It's out of the University of Melbourne. And what they do is they do geospatial analysis. And so they're able to show how combining the real world with where they would see a new campus would be built, basically. They show how the transportation can be designed and defined. And they say, here's what it is today. here's where it would need to be. And they use augmented reality to bring that blend of the real world with the virtual world, or I would say the augmented, and where they want to be. They also do that in terms of looking at what is the skyline effect, what is the effect of blocking of the sun. If we have this whole cluster of buildings here, how is that going to affect, not just mentally, but also in terms of the lighting and the things that we would have to do. So there's different companies around that. In fact, Portland National Research Labs has joined, and they're all about smart lighting, and smart lighting brings into play all those different areas. So they have simulation mechanisms and different aspects associated with that. And those are just some examples. We have them across the board in those different areas. And of course, Microsoft, right? So Microsoft with their HoloLens, you're familiar with that, right? Are you aware of the HoloLens? Oh, I think you might have gone mute.
Yes, you can attach to things like their gaming consoles and things like that. Yes.
Exactly.
I haven't used it, but
yes.
Oscar was just showing us his HoloLens.
I'm sorry?
Oscar here on the call, he was just showing us his HoloLens. Yeah?
Oh yeah, I saw it early on, and
he's got all the toys.
When that's great. I would love to get one. But I remember what struck me the most when they unveiled it was they said, how many of you want to build something out of thin air? And they go, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, you use PowerPoint, right? I say, sure. Okay, well, we're going to show you how we're going to build something out of thin air. So they put the HoloLens on, and they have a camera geared for that. It's a great video. You should watch it. So they start to build. And he says, okay, let's see, what do we want? Well, here's our PowerPoint, our virtual PowerPoint in the air. And he says, okay, let's take a couple triangles, let's mate them together, let's put them here, group them all together. Okay, now let's do the inverse of that. Okay, now let's mate them together, put some channels in here, all the rest of this. Let's add some color to it. They take literally a virtual spray can, go, whole thing fills out right in front of your eyes. Virtual, right there, holographic projection. He says, okay, now it's all sitting here in the air, right? Everybody, yep, okay, great. Print to 3D, print. 3D printer sitting up there, here's the product. I just built this and did this from thin air. And by the way, I just wired the other one up right before I came in, and now I'm gonna fly it. And they started flying it. So it was brilliant. That's exactly right. No, he actually printed 3D, and he had the whole system there, but he built it out of thin air. It was brilliant. And there's many, many other applications, obviously, but that's the one that really struck me. Okay, so any other questions? I hope I'm not boring you. Is this hitting the mark of what you wanted to hear? Is this, is this there? No commercials.
No, it's great. It's great stuff.
Excellent, thank you. So we have the 4 vertical working groups, we have that horizontal cross-cutting group, and then of course we have the marketing, so there's opportunities for white papers, for blogs, for I want to start a podcast. I mean, it's just so exciting, the opportunities in driving this forward. This is sort of the structure of that horizontal working group. So if you look at it, we focus on the terminology, but we also have the area I talked about, the common characteristics, the enabling technologies, which brings in new, every day it seems like something new is coming up. I talked with one of a potential member where they said, yeah, we've been working on some augmented reality. Actually, we're using machine learning. I'll tell you what we're doing. We're using machine learning to be able to detect vaping. So we can get it down to a very, very small profile, small footprint, which is going to save, but we're going to be able to detect probably down to 0.3 micron. So now you're starting to say, okay, well, if it's that level, we're in a pandemic, so you can detect these types of things? I said, absolutely. And you can do it very cost effectively? I said, absolutely. We custom designed a specific device where we have machine learning algorithms in there, engines really, that we could have trained for these specific areas. And as a result of this, we're able to do, we started out as a vape detector, basically. but we know where we can go with this, and we're going there very quickly. I said, that's great. Well, how are you going to be able to show it? Well, we have development kits. So I'm waiting for mine to come in. I ordered one because this is air quality. This is brilliant. I said, well, you know, I'm part of this digital twin consortium. I don't know if you've known digital twins. He said, we're actually implementing this with a digital twin. And so it's like, interesting. Well, let's talk some more. So it's like I said, every day I'm uncovering these types of things, these new innovations, and really, again, life-changing. These are things that, you know, being able to detect this in advance, brilliant. So enabling technologies, that's sort of where I was talking about. Then we have the platform stacks, looking at it across the board and the interactions. There's some interesting observations that come out of that, because it's the traditional representation of a stack is you're stacking up, right? From the foundation, from the thing, and then you transfer up, and then you have your area where you bring the outside data in. So you have your APIs, whatever else. Well, when you have something like security or trustworthiness, it needs to have access to all those different layers. And there's implications associated with that, obviously. So what we're looking at is providing that type of a traditional stack up, but also at the same time, look at it from a knowledge graph or a graph database. Because now you can have different nodes. You can show the relationships, which is key, but you can also show the attributes associated with them. So now you get multi-dimensionals of these. So in a way, it's a digital twin of a stack up of a digital twin. So it's really interesting, the approaches and the way they're coming up with some of these really thought leadership ideas and how they can represent this and make it very straightforward. Taxonomy, the different types. You know, if you think about it, the digital twin that would be for a process such as supply chain management is going to have very, very different conditions versus a digital twin of a windmill. And there's different ways that you would build that. So to your point, there's no digital twin kit. That's really because you have to think about what job are you hiring the digital twin for? What is that specific business outcome or use case that you're going to be looking at? And that will help to guide you, at least in the direction of where you should go, as opposed to taking off on these different tangents. That's one of the things that the consortium is looking to do, is to help to provide companies with that guidance. When I did that webinar, I don't tell you how many times I had the question, well, where do I go? How do I know where to start? Well, first let's understand what is it that you're hiring the twin for. And there's a great paper that came out talking about that and understanding what that means and articulating the specific areas for consideration for value. Again, all this goes back to becoming that authority in digital twins and digital twin technology. So let's see, we've covered this pretty well. As I said, the security and trustworthiness that implements, and we're leveraging a lot of the great work done from the consortium, where they came out with a security framework document, then they came out with a security maturity model, and then they built the trustworthiness concept. So part of the definition would probably better include trustworthiness. How do I deal with safety? How do I deal with resiliency, reliability, with the privacy, and of course with the security? So really the top three questions we're looking to address, and we are addressing, is what is it? Oops. What is a twin? Why should I care? And how do I get started? Back to your twin kit. What is a twin? Well, we're working on this, as I said, authoritative definition, and we can't really show it at this point because we need to get that approved by the members. So we're very collaborative here. This is a member-driven organization. And we have a meeting with the steering committee, and they will approve that. And once we get that, then we'll set it up to be able to publish that. And a lot of people have looked at it, and we're getting very, very close to people saying, that makes a lot of sense. And yes, that is what fits me. I'm running a survey right now where I've asked, one of the last questions was, does the terminology used in this definition adequately describe your use of the digital twin and the use case? And I'm getting, so far, I think we're up to 65% yes. And, you know, they have to answer all the questions. So the other side is slowly dropping down. But yeah, it's really interesting, this process, because remember, I'm going across the infrastructure. I'm going across the natural resources. I'm going across the aerospace and defense, manufacturing. So you can imagine, how do you get one definition to encompass all of those? You look at the fundamental elements, you look at the foundational aspects associated with it, and what are those key criteria and what are those key qualifiers? It's the guys doing this out of the Tiger team we've got, just brilliant. You open up one of the guys' minds, and I swear he's got to have a whole encyclopedia inside there. It's great. So a lot of fun, but we take it very seriously. Obviously, one member said, "You realize once we do this, this is going to become the bumper sticker of the consortium, because there are so many definitions out there, and nobody's really, well, I'm just doing it for this, and that's all I care about." But that doesn't apply to this. So it's really interesting, the different aspects. As far as what we're looking at it to be able to provide the scaffolding of the work that's coming out throughout all the different members in the vertical groups, be able to direct it towards the commercial audience, so it will be understandable, it will be digestible, looking at towards more of the open standards and center on, as I said, the values, the outcomes, the use cases, and really ensure that this is agnostic, right? We're not trying to show one over the other. Really very important about that. This is member-driven, and collaboration and interactive is key to this. But have it applicable across those different domains, those different vertical working groups, and different representations of those applications and markets. And then focus on the what, not the how. There'll be some of the how in it, but it's really about what is this? That's what the definition needs to do, and it needs to stand on its own. It needs to provide scalability. How can we extend that and bring out the area for the, here you see domain specific, really I say for the differentiation necessary for each of the different market spaces, vertical areas we're talking about. Let's see, whoops. So what we're going to do is we're going to provide this standalone document first, and then we're going to further build that out in terms of a detailed technical paper to be able to address things like the common characteristics, the technology stack, the enabling technology. I think there's a lot of people that would gain a lot of value from this. And then as you see at that bottom, really look at it to make sure from a working group perspective that it is validated, it's tested. We're drinking our own Kool-Aid. We know this is where it is. It works, and I've got some just amazing examples of that. So this is a traditional look from David Jones, who actually looked at all the different areas and how do I characterize a digital twin. So this is sort of a review of, I think there were 290 areas that he reviewed to come up with this concept. So you have the virtual processes, you have the entities, you have the physical to virtual, the virtual to physical, you have that connectivity back to it, and then you have the processes. So you need to be able to include not just the, in a definition, you need to include whether it's a physical object, whether it's a process like we talked about, and what really dictates the difference from that and drives the difference from a modeling or just a simulation. I had that question thrown at me yesterday. Well, this just looks like glorified modeling and simulation. No, it's absolutely very, very different, and you're able to recognize the values from that. So here's sort of what I was talking about, that stack up and the different areas that you could have around that. This is a traditional stack I was talking about, but now look at this from the standpoint, I need access in different areas, not just pure API level to inject that data. So how do I represent that? And that's where we've got some really interesting areas and unique about that. And then if you look at it, why should I care? Well, like you said, somebody says, how do I know where to start? Well, start with the end in mind and understand what you're hiring the digital twin, or what you're hiring, what job it is, and what your outcome is, and what are the use cases. So planning, designing, building, commissioning, operating, maintaining, improving, and get even to the point of decommissioning. And so this is what that sort of life cycle is that we're looking at, but there's so many different elements and aspects associated with that, and we're seeing them, and those variations, we're seeing them come out through the use cases within the different vertical areas. And then you see one becomes more project-based, one becomes more continuous. So look at that life cycle, look at those use cases, those commonalities, and then figure out the different stages within those. And you have underlying, you have the platforms, but you also have this concept of the digital thread. So you have that data throughout at each one of those stages as sort of your cookie crumbs and traceabilities. Some people even call that a single source of truth. And this was just a representation of some of the examples. I think this came out of the Natural Resources Working Group. So there you can see grid load analysis, simulation to do impact due to catastrophic natural events, nuclear support systems, training them for hazard identification like a flight simulator or process plants. Well, guess what? That's actually being done. All sorts of different aspects. Blast furnace for casting guidance, renewable energy we talked about. So this is one of the members where they're actually using gamification to provide that virtual environment, but be able to have the augmented reality so that when they are walking through it, they know exactly where to look and what to look for in terms of understanding it. So they can optimize the process functions that they see, if they see something that doesn't make sense to them or could be done more efficiently. And then again, real-time monitoring in terms of safety and hazard assessment. What does that look like if I were to see something? So you could actually, through this gamification engine, you could actually break something and say, okay, go in virtually and you tell me where the hazards are. And then you tell me how you would fix them. And that's really the power of having that digital twin and that representation, because it's got the real data coming into it. So if he does something wrong when he's fixing it, that's exactly the way the system would behave. So again, getting started, we talked about all those different areas, looking at it from the trustworthiness, so very important in those aspects. And then why would somebody want to become part of the Digital Twin Consortium? What are they going to learn from it? Well, here's where we're talking about being able to influence, being able to bring the collaboration, the thought leadership, being able to have and drive that awareness, and then make yourself even more valuable than where you are, and look at the collective best practices. Here's some example use cases, right? I talked a little bit about the Tesla. Well, here's another case. You've got the automotive situation where you have safety critical certification and validation. Very expensive, very costly. Using a digital twin, you really can cut that cost down. So this is an actual example of where they did this. This was one of the members. Real estate in terms of enterprise use case. Figuring out how to streamline the operation based on the data that's coming in, bring all that together to recognize true value, but at the same time, look at the way the whole cluster of that environment is operating so you could actually bring down the greenhouse gas emission. And they were able to do that. So in this case, they were recognized as saving over $10 million through this type of approach. This was both a combination of a digital twin of organizations, but also a digital twin in terms of the monitoring and the sensors in that sense. A whole slew of other types of use cases, areas of things. We will be publishing a sort of a library, but we're going to go through this from the standpoint that we want to show the ones that are unique and transformational in terms of the value. So we actually have an advisory. I've set up an advisory board of a cross-functional team to evaluate these and say, all right, is this something we want to go out? Does it meet the standards of what we're looking for in terms of establishing our authority? We don't want to do the same thing everybody else has done. We want to bring that unique differentiation where people go, wow, that is different. We do understand now how important a role you're playing in this area. So in conclusion, I talk a little bit about member benefits and then the opportunities that we've had 4 webinars now, and we're building out even more. The first 2, I did what a Digital Twin Consortium is about, using some of these slides and some others. We had over 500 people register for it, and we had over 250 sit through the webinar. We made it a 30-minute webinar, but 50% of people that registered to actually watch that, that's pretty telling. So within 2 webinars, we had close to 1,000 people now understanding at least about what a digital twin was. And we're continuing to do that. Remember, one of our goals and priorities was to drive and accelerate the market and the awareness. And we feel that we really, through what we've been seeing, we're really being able to do that and make a difference. And then these are the different webinars. So each of the different vertical working groups is now running a webinar. And these are only 30 minutes, so they're pretty fascinating when you hear the companies that are actually doing these and some of their challenges and how they're addressing it and these technologies. Did you have a question? I think you might have been muted.
Will you share with us this presentation so that we can share with those that couldn't attend today?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to give you another one, say a quarter later down, so you can see the progress, because we're moving very quickly on it.
Because there's people who couldn't attend today because of the time. We usually start very early in the morning or late in the afternoon.
Sure.
And there is one particular company which is interested, which is an electric power utility. But they also do have communications. Okay. And, they sell also fiber optics communication and things like that. And they're very interested because they cover one of the main agricultural regions in Costa Rica. So that also would open probably for integrated some cyber physical stuff.
That'd be fantastic. I know many companies that would be interested in talking with them, and maybe even this idea, this fractal grid might even be something that they would be wanting to take on and be interested in those areas as well. So that's great. I mean, this is why I do these, and it really is to get the word out. But at the same time, as I said, I was doing with a CTO forum. I have 2 people that were watching that, and they said, look, we love what you're talking about. We want to become members. We want to help and drive this forward. So that was my hope. I'm glad. And like I said, I'm more than happy to come back and share with you where we've been a quarter from now or whatever. So if you let me know the name of that company, then I can reach out to them. I can even give them a session on this as well, and maybe focus a little bit more in their specific areas of interest.
Good, thank you.
Excellent. Ignacio, thank you. Very nice to meet you. Roberto, very nice to meet you.
Thank you, Dan. That was a very good talk, and thank you for sharing the slides with us. Our membership is a lot larger than what you see today. Usually our meetings have 40 people, 50 people.
That's okay. I mean, even with 2 people, I'm happy, you know, because something like this and this connection.
Yeah, we put it together very quickly. And also it was the middle of the morning, and it's hard to get people at that time of day. But we definitely would love to hear again from you, maybe early next year.
Yeah, no question. No question at all.
It's incredible how quickly this is growing. I mean,
it's astounding, and you know, it really is at this time, at this place. It's ripe for all of these innovations and what's going on. I brought in, out of the 150 members, I brought in 10%, and it's because, and everyone is a very technology and something very unique. That company I was telling you about, the vape, they're trying to see, well, should I join or not? And so they're sitting out there, but you know, it's still, I think as we continue, people will start to see the value. And they had the very same questions. You know, we're just starting out with this digital twin thing. Give me a little bit of time and we'll see where it goes. I'm saying, well, we could probably accelerate your whole effort in terms of doing a digital twin right now, so you don't have to stumble and whatever else. He says, yeah, well, let me think. So he'll come around eventually.
I was going to ask, have you had any interest from government agencies?
Absolutely. And looking at it from I would say from a regional point of view. So I'm establishing regional chapters for Latin America. As I said, the focus is going to be out of Chile, and they're tied right into that whole area for that. The other aspect, from the governance point of view for Australia, so we have representation there from the New South Wales government. I'm also liaisoning, so I have 2 different ways, in addition to the member growth, is I work through and create these different regional teams, and the companies can join, but because of, you know, language differences or whatever, we have a regional team lead. So for Latin America, it's based in Chile, and then they can bring in their companies, and through there's areas of the government, obviously, that feed into that. There's one in Germany now that I'm working on. There's one I just got off last night with Korea. Korea is super excited about it. So that's opening up several doors. And then I also, when I was doing my automotive days, I worked for NEC, and then I covered all the automotive for the Bay Area, but also Japan and China. So I have a lot of ties in those areas, and they want to open up a regional branch in Japan as well. So those expansions and those opportunities, obviously the government does factor into that and how we can work together in there. Another area is in the area of microtransactions, right? Leveraging blockchain or hyperledger. So that's another aspect that we're looking at and working with some companies. From a security point of view, yes, there are areas within the government. Some of the think tanks actually have representation directly into the government, and we're working with them as well. So it's super exciting. I don't get a lot of sleep, but then, you know, when you got the adrenaline running and everything else, and you're at this unique stage, that's fine. So it's
okay.
really great.
Well, thank you very much for that. And
thank you, Roberto.
We will share.
I'll send a PDF if that's okay. I'll probably watermark in PDF, but certainly definitely want to get that out. And like I said, please have them reach out to me if they're very interested in from that standpoint, because we do have members in that area, and I think it could be we can figure it out.
Yeah, it'd be great.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Have a great time. What time is it there? It's
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. Okay, good. All right.
Okay.
Abramos las cámaras para darle. Thanks very much, Dan.
Thank you.
Coming to Costa Rica.
I guess what I'll say, I won't say goodbye. I will say we'll see you in 6 months.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah,
bye-bye now.
Thanks for that.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you.
Muy bien. Ahí, cuando tengamos la grabación la podemos distribuir entre los que no pudieron llegar hoy.
No, la subimos al sitio, ¿verdad?
Sí, sí, sí.
Ok.
Pura vida. Bueno, que tengan buen día a todos.
Igualmente.
Hasta luego.
Pura vida. Hasta luego.